Welcome to Dad Esquire, the podcast for lawyer dads who are navigating the courtroom, the office, and the chaos of fatherhood. I'm your host, Matthew Korn, a practicing attorney and dad of four. At Dad Esquire, we tackle the unique challenges of balancing life as a lawyer dad. From work-life hacks to parenting wins and fails, I'm here to share stories, tips, and tools to help you thrive in both worlds. So grab your coffee, take a break from the billable hours, and let's spend some time focusing on being the best lawyer and dad you can be. It's time to dive in. This is Dad Esquire. All right, welcome to the next edition of Lawyer Dad of the Month on the Dad Esque podcast. Here today with my friend and law partner, Stephen G. And I'm going to let Stephen introduce himself in a second. But first, I just want to congratulate you, Stephen, on being the next Lawyer Dad of the Month, and really thank you for being part of the Dad Esquire community since really the outset. You were one of the founding members and serve on our advisory board, and you've done a lot to contribute to the growth and what the community looks like today. So I really appreciate it. Let's start with just jumping in with, give a brief introduction. I don't know if you want to go family first or job first, but just tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name, obviously, Stephen G. I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio. I escaped the state of Ohio to go to the University of Michigan, go blue. And I had a concentration in business that didn't work out when I graduated for various silly reasons. And I decided I wanted to go to law school because people listen to lawyers and lawyers know the law and the law is the law, which I mean, it is, but I've kind of discovered people don't listen to you when you're a lawyer at times. I lived in Minneapolis and then I lived in Chicago. I went to law school in Chicago, Chicago-Kent College of Law, where I met my wife, Rachel, who does marketing. Um, I worked in a few firms, moved back to Michigan, and had my first kid. Just before COVID hit, decided need to be closer to friends and family because it's getting a little hard raising a little 1-year-old. Moved over to Detroit, which is an hour north of Toledo. And luckily, we did when we did because the state shut down a week later. And we had 4 grandparents all within driving distance to help us deal with that situation. Um, my whole career has been focused on labor and employment law. The first half was basically counseling employers and dealing with labor issues, so union issues. The second half of my career has been employment litigation, focusing on single plaintiff cases. And then going back to family, sorry, because I am a dad. That son I talked about, found out he was autistic, I think in 2021 or two. So we had to go through that, and that's been an interesting journey. And then we finally had our second kid this past December. He came 5 weeks early. Benjamin, who is just growing and getting fatter and is a happy little guy. And my wife and our 2 boys, we've just been really happy these past couple of months since I made partner.
That's awesome. Yeah, and yeah, that's right. Did you make partner this January or was it last January?
This January.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so it feels like you've been a partner for longer. You've been doing a tremendous job up there in Detroit, and working with some of our clients that we've gotten to work together on has been awesome. So um, thanks, and I love that you didn't just go like family and then like it all mixed together, which is kind of
Mhm.
perfect for this because it's not like a linear. Like I put on my law hat and then my dad hat separately. I'm always a lawyer and I'm always a dad. And I think that's a interesting way you did it. I like it. So and you said your son had autism. I know we're gonna go into that, but what does that look like? Like what have you had to have you and I work with a lot of autism service providers. Is he receiving services? Is he doing some kind of ABA or other kind of therapy? What does that look like for him?
So he was diagnosed, right around turning 3 years old. Um, and what that was for a good year and a half, 2 years, he was doing about 35 to 40 hours a week of ABA therapy. My wife and I, we decided we were gonna hit this and hit it hard and try and try and autism is it's a spectrum, and he's kind of, I would say, in the middle, but he's like right there at the cusp of where he can be mainstreamed. And so that's been our goal, is to get him mainstreamed. So, we put a little guy to work, 35 to 40 hours a week of ABA therapy. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot on a
Yep.
kid.
Yeah.
But we are determined that he's going to be mainstreamed, and he's going to graduate high school and maybe go to college. So, but that's what that looked like. And then when he got older, they had a great program where I'm in South Lyon School Districts here in Michigan for preschool kids with special needs, and we put him in that program. And that program was great because it provided him a lot of structure. And we learned through that he likes knowing what is going to happen during his day, like down to the minute, and he will hold you to that schedule to the minute. He then went to kindergarten, and we tried to mainstream him fully with supports, and I'll just say it was not great and leave it at that. And he was going to be put into a level 3 program this year, which, if you don't know, that's like true special needs. You're off the high school diploma track or whatever. And then, by the grace of God, um, his teacher, Bethany Courtney, I'm going to give her a name plug because she is just awesome. They implemented an experimental level 2 program. And level 2 is where you're still on track to get a diploma, but like there's a lot more services involved. And that has just been a godsend this week, not this week, this year, um, in getting him to be a part of the classroom. And I know we'll probably get to this later, but that program has enabled him to excel in school and to be able to play with kids. Like seeing my son play with other kids, it's just like it'll bring a tear to your eye. When you have an autistic child and seeing him or her interact with other kids, it's the biggest thing ever.
Yeah. And one more question, because I'm super interested in this, and I think people who are listening might be too, especially if they've got young children, and they suspect maybe something's a little off. New parents, you were a new parent 6 years ago for the first time, and like, you're like, my child's not walking by this particular date, then
Hmm.
suddenly I start stressing out. So like what were the things you all saw that made you, or was it something where your pediatrician was like, hey, you should get him tested? What led you to getting him diagnosed?
Well, in about a year and a half, and this is my perspective, my wife's may be different. So I don't want to say I speak for her, but a year and a half, he just he wasn't developing anymore. Like he wasn't a speech, like he could say mom, dad, and he'd make eye contact and everything but he wasn't, like, speech was stunted. And that was, I don't know, that caught me off guard. And my wife and I, we researched, and a lot of public schools have this. It's called the Early On program, because some kids, they're delayed developmentally. And so a lot of school districts have an Early On program where they'll come and they'll assist you and kind of help the kid get up to the snuff. And it's all focused on getting kids kindergarten ready. And we did that, and he was just, it seemed like the gap between where he was developmentally and where he was supposed to be, he was just treading water. So that gap was just the same. And there was like no social skills. And he also, well, it has to do with social skills. He was a biter, and a pincher. And, some of his behaviors were really erratic. And so we went to a developmental pediatrician, sorry. And like within 5 minutes of seeing him, she was like, "You need to get that boy tested because, he hasn't. What was it? My son had an odd fascination with like buses, like not like a little kid normally would. And so my wife and I, thankfully, because we had the means, we just paid out of pocket to get him tested. Because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of kids they have to wait like a year sometimes to get tested, which is really not great, especially considering that like age like 3 to 5 is like huge for development. But we had him tested, and that's how we found out that he was autistic. And from there, like I said, we went at it hard. We put him to work with ABA therapy and speech and OT and everything.
Yeah. But what, and I know we're going to talk about it. I keep saying that we are talking about it. I want to talk about how it affects your work. But before we do that, I like this first one of our intro questions.
Mhm.
Um, is so, you go into being a dad or being a lawyer, and I don't think I knew what to expect in either. I thought I did. But what, if anything, surprised you about becoming a dad or becoming a lawyer?
Um, with regards to becoming a dad, I think it was you have got to be patient. You've just it is a big skill. You better develop it early on. Kids are erratic. I mean, not that, babies cry and stuff like that, but like kids don't listen, autistic or not. I know this for a fact because I've seen it through my friends and families, small children. You've got to have patience and you can't like just straight up yell at them. I mean, they're very um, they're little kids. So you patience. I learned very quickly that I needed to be patient with Alex, and that has paid dividends with Ben. Whereas when I was a new dad, and Alex was crying in the middle of the night, like I was, a little bit more panicked and harried. Now I just kind of see I see Ben, my second son, crying, and I kind of just shrug my shoulders. I'm like, he'll be fine. He just needs a bottle or a diaper change or whatever. And he's like, right as rain, quickly. Um,
You might have to teach me your secret because we were going to Easter service Sunday, and my daughter didn't like her scratchy dress.
mhm.
And I posted it on the Dadass LinkedIn page, but she screamed. She didn't like the combination of that and being strapped into her seat was really rough for her. And she's
Yeah.
2.5, and she just screamed the entire ride to church. And we live about 20 minutes away. We stopped for coffee, so it was about 30 minutes of just piercing screams. And I can tell you, I was on edge. I didn't react poorly. I've mastered the controlling my reaction to that. Maybe not mastered, it's not the right word, but in that instance, I didn't react poorly, but I was on edge when we
No,
got so
I believe it. I believe it. Yeah, I've been there, and you just got to breathe. Just
yeah.
breathe and assess the situation, and it'll be fine. And when you're out in public and that happens, you just have to remind yourself, everybody's been there. Everybody will understand. Just
Or at
try
least
and
the people who've had kids. It's the people that
yes,
don't have kids that are looking at you.
yep. There's not much else you can do.
Yeah. What about being a lawyer? What surprised you about being a lawyer?
How much people don't listen to you? I'm just kidding. Um, I think the thing about being a lawyer was that really caught me off guard was like how you have to be able to craft your message to just so many different audiences. Because like in law school, I mean, you're mostly focused on, I need to write this so that a judge will rule in my favor. So you're
Yeah.
dealing with a highly educated um, person, but when you're talking to like, lay people, or in like our profession, HR people who have like 1,000 things going on, you need to be able to cut to the chase and cut to the chase quick. But I mean, you also have to do it in a way so that they don't do anything against the law. So it's kind of interesting having to craft your message to so many different audiences. I think that's what I um, was the thing that surprised me the most.
Yeah, that's a it's tricky sometimes because as employment lawyers especially, and I we deal with everybody from mom and pop, just owner of the company, to HR professionals who have some training on employment law, but aren't maybe not attorneys, and then to like very sophisticated in-house employment attorneys. And those are the tough questions, right? When the employment attorney at a Fortune 100 company calls and says, "I've got a question," those are really tough. If they don't know the answer, it's not an easy answer, right? So, but yeah, learning how to communicate with all those different audiences and internally and personalities and stuff. And you litigate too, right? So you
Oh yeah.
find your clients, sometimes you're feeling like, we're managing not just the legal part, but the emotional part and the
Hmm.
um, just getting them through that process, right? That we've been through 100 times, so it might not feel like a big deal, but for them, it's their first one, and it does feel like a big deal.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you so you work as a lawyer? We work a lot. Um, Although I think our firm does a pretty good job in terms of our standards and expectations. But we still work a lot. And with the modern world, we got phones in our pockets. We're thinking about work a lot, even when we're not physically in the office. And so how do you balance that and being present for your kids when you get home?
I think the big thing is, and you kind of talked about it earlier on about, you'd like to just be able to have your dad hat on and then your lawyer hat on. It's very difficult to do, but I try my best to separate the two worlds as much as I can. And then to do that, you have to set boundaries with clients, with other partners, when I was an associate, with the partners you're working with. And then, on the other side, with your family, your wife, you've, I mean, you've got to make it pretty crystal clear the expectations. Not like you're demanding of your wife, but like you have to explain to her, like, I have to meet these hours, I have to meet these requirements. Like, I'm really going to need you to step in for me on certain times. And I'm lucky. My wife, her father was a lawyer in private practice, so she kind of already knew about it, so it wasn't as hard. But it all comes to communication. That's, I think, the key to me being able to balance both is I'm able to communicate successfully with people about what my needs are, and they're able to successfully communicate with me about what their needs are. So like, if I have a brief due or something, I tell my wife well in advance, I have this brief due. It has to be done, and I need you to be able to pick up the kids from school, or pick up Alex from at that time. The one I'm thinking about is like daycare. It's all about communication. And in the reverse, it's my wife telling me like a week in advance, hey, Ben's having his like 2 month checkup, and I'd really like you to be there. And with a week's notice, I'm able to look at my schedule, look at what's due, and I'm able to move things around so that I can be at something that's important to my wife.
Yeah.
Um, and it's important to me to be at the 2 month checkup. It's just, truth be told, my wife is more up to date on those things than I am.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And um, this will air in May for the and we've got Mother's Day coming up. So it's a good chance to celebrate that, our as lawyer dads, assuming we've got a partner, she's picking up a lot of slack usually. My wife, same thing, and it um my wife stays home with our four kids, and she does so much, and I've got to appreciate that, and I do. And I think I've actually told her I want to do an interview with her one time for this, and
Mhm.
just see what's the perspective of being the spouse or the partner of a lawyer, dad, for the dad-esque community, because I'm interviewing all the dads, so get some spouse perspectives. Maybe we should start doing it with spouses on this, but I'm kind of afraid.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah,
say, you
that's
sure
I'm
you
kind of
won't open
afraid.
that box?
Yeah. I'm kind of afraid. I'm sure she would say a lot of nice things, but I'm kind of afraid. So, but it is so important to find that balance, and again, there are a lot of single parents out there, so I don't want to minimize that. But when you do have a partner or a spouse, like finding that balance and being able to, I think you said it best, communicate with them about, maybe on this one time I'm the one that's got more flexibility, and maybe you have more flexibility here. Um, so yeah, that's great response, Stephen. Do you think that being a dad has changed the way you've been a lawyer? I mean, you were a lawyer, I think, for at least a few years, right before Alex was born. So has it
Mhm.
changed the way you've thought about practicing law, or as he's gotten older, has it changed the way you've thought about how you practice law, how you interact with people in your office, anything like that?
Yeah. So growing up, I played hockey and I was what you would call I'd like to think I was the enforcer type. So I was the guy who would hit, player coming across the middle and, very physical play. So like when I came into being a lawyer, I kind of had a little bit of that enforcer mentality, like, people call it like, oh, be a bulldog attorney, whatever. I wasn't like a full-fledged one, but like it was like to me, it was like, all right, I'm gonna get the other guy. I'm gonna show that other attorney who's boss or whatever. And after a couple of years of having Alex, not even a couple, probably just one, like all of that patience that I had to learn in having a child, I think really influenced the way I practiced. Now I'm a little bit more like I'll take a step back and I'll just kind of like let things slide off. Things that used to like really, really annoy me. Like I just let it go. I take it for what it is and I move forward. And I think it's really helped my practice because, it prevents the jerk lawyers out there from getting under my skin. And also it's improved my opinion. It's improved my reputation within both the defense and the plaintiff's bar because I'm not somebody who gets high or low. I'm very even keeled when I practice law because of the patience that I've gathered in being a father.
Well, one, I didn't know you played hockey. I don't
Oh.
think, but that's awesome. Was that in high school, college?
High school. I had stone hands, so there was no way in heck I was gonna be playing hockey in college.
You were
But
just hitting people. That's awesome.
I was hitting people and getting hit in front of the net. Yeah.
And then two, just the patience. I'm just curious, is there something you did to try to become more patient? In my mind, did you read books, listen to podcasts, did you just over time just develop this patience?
You know what? It was kind of trial and error. And I just found that when I would like breathe and like take a step back, um, the outcomes were a lot better. And able to in getting Alex to do what I needed him to do or to respond to a certain situation where, little kids under the age of 3, I mean, they don't have control over their emotions. But when you're calm, it influences them and they get calm quicker. Um, so yeah, I think it was mostly just trial and error and finding that, you know, being a little bit more empathetic, taking a breath and assessing the situation for what it was really just it helped.
Um, that's really good. I think that's something that is probably a continual process. For me at least. I talk to my friends a lot about like this difference between reacting and responding to things and taking that step. You said it, taking the step back. I think that's so important. Sometimes I can't remember to take that. I just start reacting before I take the step back.
Mhm.
But it's something definitely to work on because I think you're right. The outcomes are better.
Mhm.
Um, so tell me, and I know we talked about your son and autism. It, have what are some of the specific challenges or obstacles you've had to overcome as a parent and as a lawyer dad? Just it feels like that's one extra thing to add to what is already two pretty stressful, high stress and demanding roles. So has that added any extra obstacles for you? I know we talked about figuring out the school setting, but just speak to that a little bit.
So the one thing I think people need to understand about autism is, I mean, yes, it's technically a disability, but it's a disability because autistic children and people in general, they process the world very differently. And I think that word different was a big obstacle that I had to overcome because people hear the word different and a lot of people will go different means bad. Oh, he's that's a bad thing. And I just one of the obstacles I had to get over was things are just going to be different with my son. But different doesn't mean better and it doesn't mean worse. It's just going to be different. It's going to be different. I'm not my son's not always going to look me in the eye. My son is, going to be a little different in the way he plays with toys and plays with others. And I think making peace with that was a big obstacle early on. I remember when I got the diet. Well, no, before the diagnosis. And I remember breaking down crying on the stairs just because I just wanted to know what was going on with my little boy. And I wanted to know, I wanted to know why things were so different.
Yeah.
Um, and even after he was diagnosed, it took me a long time to really make peace with the fact that things were going to be different. And once I did, I was able to really, truly enjoy my child. My wife has a saying, she always says, we meet him where he's at. And I have found that once I was able to meet my son where he was at developmentally, socially, I've been able to have a blast with him. After being able to meet him where he's at, I've got him riding a bike. I've got him interested in things that I like roller coasters and stuff like that. I think that was a big obstacle was just coming to peace with the fact that things are going to be different and a little more I guess obstacles that um, re- the school thing. So um, one of the problems with the school thing was that the school was putting parapros with him, which was good. He needed a parapro with him to help redirect him.
What's a parapro just for visual?
Paraprofessional, like an assistant, a teacher's assistant. That's basically what it is. Um, but they were like just burning through parapros because they were only like temps because it's a hard position to fill with a high quality person. And the school district, well, I'm not going to blame the district. I'm going after the specific school. They they didn't understand what they were getting into, even though we tried to tell them and tried to explain to them, our son's condition and things that were needed. So that was a big obstacle, I think, was just dealing with that school. During that 1 year, we even hired an advocate, which was really stressful. But she was a big help, the advocate, because we would have meetings with the school and she would help us kind of communicate like our concerns and our issues. And she would also help communicate the school's issues and concerns to us. Um, but somebody within the school district was listening and, you know, was able to provide my son with the resources that he needed this year. And he has blossomed, I think is a perfect word. He has blossomed. I
That's
mean,
so good.
a year ago, they had to hold his hand and help him write. He can now do freehand writing, and I have horrible handwriting, so maybe I'm biased, but I can read it. You
Yeah.
can, it's just jaw dropping. And he can read books and understand what they're about. I mean, it just, amazing. If you told me a year ago, oh, he'd be writing freehand and able to read, I'd told you you're crazy.
It's
Um,
awesome.
so yeah. And then, with all of this going on, trying to be a lawyer, trying to make partner, trying to make my hours and everything, what it, the challenge there was like my mental health, like trying to keep it straight. And, I have my own issues I won't get into that kind of get piled onto that. But, what I will say is that I have found that having a third party counselor, therapist, whatever form you want to take, just having somebody who's detached from everything and being able to talk with them and bounce ideas off of them has been huge. And being able to kind of deal with all of these challenges and obstacles, both professionally and within my family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. I mean, and you're right. Like I'm thinking about it in the context of like you're trying to get a promotion at work and you're dealing with all these different things at home and just it's a lot to balance. And I
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing just talking it out with somebody that can help. I I personally like my hope and I've seen it already in Dad-esque. Like I think Dad-esque can be a space for guys. Um, not at a professional counseling, as far as I know, no one yet in the community is a professional
Mhm.
counselor, but they're lawyers and dads. And when we start talking about issues with each other, you've been in some of these meetings where guys have been really open and vulnerable. And I think that when you start realizing other guys have the same, they're dealing with the same issue, it's just an amazing effect on you. Like for me, it's been a light bulb. Like that's the value of community is knowing I'm not alone in this struggle. I'm not, we've got other members of our community that have kids with autism too. And I think, eventually we'll have probably a subgroup of folks that can talk about some of the different things. I imagine at some point you'll be teaching people how to get through that, get them into
Mhm.
the right program at school and stuff. So I just think there's a really cool um, benefit there, and I talking it out with people. So and you're right. We've got this is mental health stress management month. I appreciate you reminding me. In
Mhm.
May, we've got themes for every month in Dad-esque, and this is mental health and stress management month. And we're gonna have some really, really cool material this month. We just recently had a member join, Jarrett Green, who's a psychologist, and he's gonna do a whole presentation on the neuroscience and resilience. And so we're gonna have some really cool stuff this month. But um, tell me, and you've already kind of talked about it, but um, these mental health or the stress that just comes with it, what kind of strategies have you employed other than counseling or meeting with somebody? Any other strategies you've employed to kind of manage that stress?
W- Working out. Although I say I struggle to do it, but like I'm at like I think I have the Peloton app, not the actual bike, but the app, and I've at least done at least one workout for 48 straight weeks. And I
That's
think
great.
that's really big. You need a physical or you need an outlet. You need something where you can kind of like put your frustrations and everything and just put it into something. And that for me has been like working out, riding my bike or doing yoga or, just some ab workouts because I'm developing, the dad bod and trying to reverse that as much as possible, but learning that that's never going to happen. I just need to make peace with the dad belly. No, seriously though, working out's been huge for me. Another thing, and I probably have harped on this a lot, and it has to do with the counselor thing, but communication, like just being open with my wife, partner, like when things are really bad. Um, I think that's really important because, it's just another sounding board. It's another person to hear you. And sometimes being able to just vocalize your stress is helpful, and you can't always have a professional counselor there at all times. So I think that's really helpful. And then I think a third thing is you got to have like a hobby or an interest outside of work and
I
family.
was hoping you're going to get there because I was like, you're hiding the eight ball. There's something awesome about you that I wanted you to talk about. Maybe this is it, maybe not, but I'll ask
Maybe,
if it's not.
oh, if it's not, oh, all right. So for me, it's sports. I'm just a huge sports nut. Um, oh, that too. Hobby wise, woodworking. Yes,
Yes.
I do
Yeah, tell
woodworking.
us about that.
Yeah. So I like to call it large format woodworking, which means I build like tables and chairs. I kind of alluded to it. I have bad handwriting, which means I don't have very good, what is it, fine motor skills, but gross motor skills, I'm good. I can cut a piece of wood, I can put a nail into a board. I it's a funny story. I'm gonna get into this now. So our old house when we lived in Grand Rapids, I think the house was all of like 3 or 4 years old when we bought it. People before us never took care of the deck. And so there were holes developing in the deck, and we had a little kid on the way. And I replaced the whole floor of the deck with just a saw and a hammer. And I was so proud of myself for doing that. And that's what kind of got me into woodworking. That's the reason I tell the story. And because I'm proud I replaced the whole floor of a deck.
I may need you to come down to South Carolina and visit me this summer, Stephen. Help me with my deck.
Yeah.
We have a dad-ass meeting in Columbia. We can work on my deck together. No, that's awesome. That like in such a cool like that's why I wanted you to bring it up because like I think when you have an outlet like that, it's a discussion point, but also just like a cool. It's so different from what we do every day. Like when I say my hobby's reading, I love to read, but I read all day long. So reading doesn't feel like a break from that. But woodwork, I guess I could analogize somehow my job to chopping down trees and things, but it's so different. So it's
Hmm.
really cool.
Yeah.
And you're a Lions fan, right?
Yes, I am. Yes,
We've
get older.
we've talked about that, but maybe this year, Bills Lions. That is my dream is Bills Lions Super Bowl. And then I will be happy. I'll be honest. I'll be more happy if the Bills win, but I'll be happy either way for to see one of the franchises win their first. So I
Yeah.
have I have hope this year that that's what's going to happen. We'll
Hmm.
see. But I say this every, my wife's like, you say this every year that the Bills are going to win Super Bowls.
Hmm.
Oh man. All right. So what's one of your proudest moments as a dad?
You know what? It was probably, gosh, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had two of my friends over with their spouses and their kids, and the kids were between, I think, 3 to 7. And at one point, we were eating at our dining room table at our house, and I just turned to my right and I see my son and all of the other kids surrounding Marble Run. If you don't know what Marble Run, it's where you drop the marble down the track and
Mhm.
it goes down the track. And they were all playing together, and Alex was communicating with the other kids about, oh, let's add this part to this um to the run. And it just, it was amazing because it's been such a long journey for my son to get where he's at now, and to be able to see him playing with other kids, socializing, it's I can't really express it in words, but that was probably the proudest moment I've ever had as a dad, is just seeing my son playing with other kids. It was
Yeah,
just huge.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And no matter what, like watching my kids out, it's just a fun experience as a dad, seeing your kid like socially interacting and just having fun. My kids, we have a little swing set in our backyard, and I mean little. Our backyard's really tiny, but it's a little swing set, and it's the only one on the street. So like all the kids are over at our house all the time, swinging on the swing set, and it's just a fun. It's just fun to like. I'll stand inside like the morning room and just watch them out there playing, and there's an innocence and like a joy that unfortunately, I think some of us lose some of that as we get older. So watching it has been awesome. Um, what is I know so we've talked a lot about learning patience. I had my outline and maybe we've already covered it, but what's a lesson your kids have taught you that surprised you? Is there anything but the patience thing?
Resiliency, being able to like, yeah, as babies, they cry, they get their bottle and they're happy. But like, like my son, he, has tripped and fell and scraped his knee and cried. And then like 2 minutes later, he's just like off playing fine. Like that ability to just like let things wash off of you and just move on. I think that's a big lesson that both of my sons have taught me. Really do.
That's awesome. Um, do you and your wife have like a secret trick that makes parenting really easy? Do any life hacks that help with parenting?
I, you know, it's not a trick. It's more something I'm lucky to have had, which is um, my parents were great parents themselves. And so, kind of, I talked about, I take a breath and like take a second to assess the situation. Like, I would just think back to my childhood. Okay, like, what would my mom or my dad do? And then I would implement it. So, I would say, you know, um, a trick is to, when you see good parenting with a good outcome, like, try to remember it as best as you can every instance because it'll come, you know, those instances are going to happen to you and you'll be able to implement successful strategies. So, see and do.
Yeah, that's a positive spin on what I find too often. I'm saying things to my kids like make like you left the front door open. You're not being raised in a barn, which is something my parents taught me told me when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And like things like that where I hear my dad or my mom saying something in my head that I'm now repeating to my kids. But I like the positive spin of like there were some things that my parents did well as well. And or, again, like the value of being in a community like that esque is hearing from a guy that says, "Hey, I do this," and you try it out and it works really well, or you have something to offer to somebody else, is
Mhm.
is awesome. So, um, all right. So I've got some quick hit questions for you that you're not prepared for. Um, so one of on your dad-esque bio and the community, it says that you're a big fan of cooking, always experimenting with new recipes in your free time.
Mhm.
So what are your top recipes or what are you working on right now?
Well, my recipes are my wife's recipes, basically, because she's the one that will pull them off of the internet. And I'll help put, I guess, a little spin on it sometimes. Like I like to put, I like Cajun seasoning, and wherever I can sneak it on, I'll do that. And I kind of experimented with cooking like that from a young age. My If you talk to my parents, I'm going to beat them to the punch. They will tell you about the cinnamon chicken incident where I put cinnamon on a chicken to cook, and it was disgusting. So
So is it good?
no, no, it was horrible. It was horrible. Dry as all. Yeah, it was bad. But you experiment, you learn. I think my wife and I, we're really, we experiment is with seafood and making different boils, different paellas, mixing up different fish. And, we do get good fish up here up north. It's a premium. Um, but yeah, I'd say seafood. Yeah, seafood. That's at least my go-to in terms of what I like to mess around with.
Yeah, I love cooking too. I find during the week it's hard because if I cook, it's just too late by the time we would sit down to eat. But I love cooking on the weekend. I just something about it feels I said something different. I hate baking though. I don't know. Do you like to bake? I'm not a baker.
No, my wife is though. She's really good.
That's good. I like to me it's too precise. And I'm like, I feel like I have to be precise all the time. Cooking, I
Hmm.
love your example of like the cinnamon on the cake. Like, why not try it, right? Like we have to be precise all day in the law. So like cooking, I can be like, that feels like enough salt, that feels like enough
Hmm.
pepper. And it might not come out perfect, but it's fine. So I love that. All right. I like this question. I'm not sure if I could answer it. So let me ask you and see. I'll let you modify it. But it's describe your parenting style in three emojis. But if you want to use three words, I'm okay with that too. I don't know how familiar you are with the emoji library.
Um, I would say laughing but crying all at the same time.
Nice.
Gotta take things as they come and just laugh at the kids do silly things. Um, Another is probably the what is it? The I think it's bashful or embarrassed, just because again, kids do the craziest things, and that's my initial reaction usually to it is I'm embarrassed, but I think the third emoji would probably be the one where the guy is like this, because sometimes it just with my parenting style, it's like, I don't know, I'm just gonna try something and see if it works.
It's awesome. That's awesome. That was a good effort, Steve. I love that.
Mhm.
What is what is your go-to dad move or strategy when your kids are misbehaving in public?
Misbehaving in public. It sounds so horrible, but it works. Just usually they misbehave when they're doing or engaging in an activity that they really like. So threatening to take it away, I find really, really, really works. Now, my son Alex hasn't gotten to the point where he can go, well, I can, like I'm going to send you to your room. Well, all my toys are in my room. I haven't had to quickly counter that yet, but thus far, threatening to take something away, that works really well. Of course, in a calm, measured way. I think
We
that's
call that consequences. I like
Consequence
we
Town. That's what I tell
yeah.
my son. You're going to have to go to Consequence Town.
Yeah.
Population.
I like that consequence, Don. We haven't done that. Uh, but I like that. I think that's important for our kids to understand their actions have consequences. Some are positive. Uh,
Mhm.
you do something good. Just the other day, my son came with me to run some errands, and he was super helpful. So we dropped into like a Five Below. I don't know if you have these up in Michigan, but it's like it's not like $1. Everything's like $5 except for their like expensive section that goes up to like $20. But they've got
Mhm.
like a lot of toys, and my son just loves like going in there and picking out some. He got like a $3 deck of Minecraft playing cards, but it was just
Mhm.
like that was a consequence, right? Like that was the consequence of his action was that he got rewarded for doing something good, and there's too more often it's the negative consequence. You might lose your iPad, or you might lose whatever activity. You're right. Whatever activity is bringing you that joy at that moment, that might be the consequence.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'll,
we have a stock chart for my son. Every day that he's good, because we have a binder that comes home with him every day, telling us how he did. And they have what is it? A grow and a glow. Glow, the good thing he did, and a grow, the area that he needs to improve in. And the teacher will assess whether he gets an award, and if he does, he gets a star, and he gets a candy or something. And that's worked really well for us.
yeah, my kid's preschool has like different colored dots they get on like a calendar, I think.
Mhm.
Um, and we had a little rough patch with our 4, almost 5-year-old, and he he's capable of being in control at school. And we said, so, but same thing, like a reward system of, hey, if you get this many blue dots, if you get blue dots the rest of the week, then we'll go out and get ice cream together as a family or something.
Mhm.
Um, I like that a lot. All right. Last one. What is your favorite kids movie, TV show, and song?
So that was favorite kids movie, TV show, and song. Favorite movie is probably, and I'm just lucky, I think, that my son liked it, but Nightmare Before Christmas. My son really liked that movie when I took him to the theater. Alex loved. He calls it the Halloween movie. So that's a TV show, not Cocomelon or Baby Shark. Gosh, kids nowadays, all they do is watch YouTube. So I'm going to substitute show for YouTube videos. And I think the favorite one that he watches is probably all the Marvel. He likes watching Marvel Run videos. So I like that. Those are cool. 'Cause I think about that and the train videos. He watches a lot of train videos, and I really get into those because it's amazing how watching trains will just create so much peace for you. I don't know, it's the monotony of the noise. And then what was it? Song. I'm gonna go to one from Sesame Street. I Got a New Way to Walk. My wife and I still sing that song, and it's like from the '80s or whatever. But I don't know. It's catchy.
Awesome. Yeah. We do like YouTube fasts with our kids because as they get older, you got to watch it more when they get older. Even the YouTube kids, they sneak some stuff in there and that is not kid appropriate, or it slips through
Hmm.
whatever kind of filters they have. And um, I came home from work one day and my son told me he needed some Gucci clothes. And I was like, "Where did you learn about Gucci?" And he said, "On YouTube." And I was like, "Yeah, we're going to take a break from YouTube." So yeah, be careful with YouTube, but
Hmm.
uh I agree. I mean, there's so many things. When I started Dad-esque, my kids also watch a lot of Mr. Beast, and um they kept asking me, "How many followers do you have, Dad, on your Dad-esque Instagram account?" Like, 7. They're like 7,000. I'm like, no, 7. So it's more than 7 now, but it's not quite Mr. Beast level. Someday. Well, thanks, Stephen. This has been awesome, and I really appreciate you sharing. I think this can be really helpful to somebody that maybe a little bit earlier on in the process of going through diagnosis and all that stuff too. But I appreciate you sharing that because it's personal stuff, and I love that you did share that with us. And again, I'm excited. I think we're at 150 members right now, a few months into starting Dad-esque, and I think this is going to continue to grow. And um, I just appreciate you and your just helping me kind of figure out what it looks like in the next 3, 6 months, year on our advisory board. So thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of the week and get some fun, relaxed time with your kids this weekend.
Sounds good.
All right, man. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Dad Esquire. If you found value in today's episode, leave a review and share it with other lawyer dads who could use a little extra support. For more tips, stories, and community, subscribe to our podcast and visit www.dadesq.com. If you're a lawyer dad who wants to join the community, submit your request to join today at www.dadesq.mn.co. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and on Instagram at dad_esquire for even more updates and, of course, some lawyer dad jokes. Until next time, keep crushing it at work and home. You've got this, lawyer dad.